Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Jump Seat. We are back. We had a week off last week for the Thanksgiving time holiday, but we are back here for another Friday. I got Dave with me. Dave, how's it going?
It's going great. It's going great. We had a great time off there.
Excellent.
Got to spend it with some family last week. Hope you were able to do the same.
Yeah, definitely a good time with family and loved ones, and everybody's staying healthy on our part, so we're good there. For anybody just joining on, the Jump Seat's a weekly spotlight, bringing you key industry insights, thought leadership, and subject matter experts affecting both you and your fire department. It's hosted by two Jump Seat firefighters, myself, John Martins, along with my co-host Dave Durstein, and we are here for number 32, I believe, of the Jump Seat. And so today, we've got a three-part series we're going to get to in just a minute. Before that, Dave, tell us about some happenings in our fire service real quick.
Yeah, there's many times, John, that we get a chance to talk about cool things in the fire service, and this is actually one. An individual I know that took a promotion here recently, and I just want to give a shout out to what is now Deputy Chief Tiffany Wesley from the Arlington County, Virginia Fire Department, and well deserved on Tiffany's part. I got to know Tiffany a couple years ago. She did some instructing at FDIC. Also met her and spent some time with her at the CFSI event in Washington, D.C. Really an incredible woman in the fire service, a great leader. I'm glad to see her get this great promotion. And not only is it kind of a unique promotion because she is now the first Black female deputy chief in Northern Virginia. And there's a lot of great departments in Northern Virginia and in that great DC metro area. So Tiffany, I just wanted to personally shout out to you and say, hey, congratulations, great job. And I look for big things out of you and the continued success of the Arlington County Fire Department there. So great job.
Congratulations. Tiffany. That's great. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Excellent.
Yeah, John, there's many other things we could talk about in the fire service, but I think there's probably, not one issue bigger than one of the ones we're covering today. And so, I don't want to delay us any further from jumping into the Jump Seat and really starting this first episode, the first part of this three-part series. And to all our followers who are out there, this is some crazy stuff that until we started researching it and having our talks with our guests, I wasn't as in tune to some of this theories and the tests that they're doing. So I'm excited to share this with all of you and bring it to the industry in a bigger way here today. John, I'll let you take it from there, man.
Yeah, excellent. So I'll before I bring them in here, this is going to be a three-part series, and for those watching, it's not just your average wash your gear and take a shower after a fire. This is going to be a lot deeper than that. It's a deeper look. First part here is going to be about carcinogen reduction and not just what, but why, and some of the things that maybe we've overlooked. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in our first, we've got two today joining in. We've got Gary Baum. He's a deputy chief out of the Reddick Fire Department, as well as his partner in crime, which is Mr. Patrick Wilwook. Thank you. Guys, welcome to the Jump Seat. And Gary, we started talking here a while back about planning this. I know you've had some affiliations within some of the research we've done in the world of foam and what's next in our fire service. So I would just like to thank you both for joining, and we're really excited to hear from you. Welcome.
Thank you. It's our honor.
So maybe the best way to introduce yourselves, because John and I don't do your background any justice. So maybe, both Patrick and Gary, you guys would give us just a little snippet about who the heck are you guys out there, and why is it that we're having you on the Jump Seat here today, and Gary, really the next 2 weeks after this?
Okay. Well, first of all, by career, I'm a high school teacher, and for 18 years I taught freshmen physics and chemistry, physical science. For the last 15, I run a high school fire science program in Illinois, where our first-year kids are doing firefighter 1, our second-year kids do pump operator, vehicle extrication, and firefighter 2. How I got into this, I got into the executive fire officer program at the National Fire Academy in 2013, and my year 3 EFO research paper, applied research project, was on the potential reduction of carcinogen exposures to firefighters by using Class A calves. And I went ahead and did some initial research, and we'll get into the strengths and weaknesses of that research. I ended up publishing the paper. It got a perfect score. From there, it got an Excellence in Research Award, and I've been invited to speak in Hong Kong. I was in Fire Asia in 2018, and then went to the first ICAFS symposium in Amsterdam in the fall of that year. And after those two events were over, I knew the science behind it was weak. I reached out to a former student of mine, the current firefighter, Pat Vilwalk. I knew Pat was into atmospheric monitoring, and we put together a package for meters that would give us the numbers, the data behind what we were doing, and we've been moving forward ever since. And so, anyway, I think the rest of it we'll cover through the show today. So,
absolutely. Patrick, anything else you want to share on yourself there, or?
No, just I've been a firefighter medic for going on 10 years now, and I've known Gary even longer than that because I was in his program through high school. He's always been a big mentor, probably the biggest mentor, and did a lot of training with him, and he's just a book of knowledge. So I stuck by his side, and we have the kind of relationship where we could go a year without communicating, and he hits me up, hey, I need this, whatever. It's like we haven't missed a beat. So yeah, he pulled me aside for what was going on, and my background on the side was a lot of experience with air monitoring, a lot of environmental cleanup companies, stuff like that. PIDs, FIDs, just a whole array of stuff. So I went initially, and we'll hit on that later, but I saw a lot of stuff that I have not seen before, and opened up my eyes a lot. But
yeah,
basically from my end, before we delve deeper.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I'm excited to hear more about this topic, and kind of, again, part one, we're going to be talking more on the carcinogen reduction side today, guys. And we can't, we try to fit as much information as we can in a short period of time. We're going to do that, but we know good and well that we can't go everywhere and to all the depths that we should go to. But I hope this is an opportunity to hear just a high level overview of this topic, and just maybe help us think differently about it. So Gary, I'm going to kick it over to you to really take us to the next level on this part one.
Okay. So I guess the best part is to talk about why I got into the research in general. So, and as I said, I taught high school introductory level chemistry and physics. So as I was doing research on firefighting foams, and I was reading on Class A foams, I kept coming across this carbon affinity, that hydrocarbons have an attraction to hydrocarbons. And it makes sense because in the chemical world, likes like. Polar solvents like polar solvents, and hydrocarbons like hydrocarbons. And as I was reading Class A foam, the surfactants in those are hydrocarbon-based. They're detergents, similar to the soaps that we use for cleaning. And as I began to look more and more into it, I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So as this principle of modern fire behavior began to come into the fire service about really what was in smoke, and UL released a project in 2010, authored by Tom Fabian, and it talked about firefighter exposures to cancer-causing agents in smoke, and he listed out a whole list of known and suspected carcinogens. And you look at it and go, okay, well, these are carcinogens. Well, these are hydrocarbon-based carcinogens because of this incomplete combustion inside of compartments. And of course, we know that the smoke is what causes cancer. And it's not an acute issue, it's a chronic issue. It's this long-term exposure. So I started to put two and two together. I'm like, well, if we injected Class A foam into the smoke environment, would we not literally scrub the carcinogens right out of the smoke? And if we were doing that, we would reduce our exposures to firefighters. And so I began to put this forward. I approached the National Fire Academy for my third-year project. I had to get special permission because this had been never done before. You know, and when I talked to the program developer, he says, there's nothing like this in our research library. Yes, do it, do it, do it. And so I did.
Well, and just this real quick, just the similarity in Class A and what would be known as the Dawn dish soap, right? There's a lot of comparables.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's the reason why detergent cleans. I mean, you know, the reason that Dawn's commercial with the fuzzy yellow duck covered in crude oil is being cleaned with Dawn detergent. It's this attraction of the hydrocarbon surfactants that make up the detergent to these hydrocarbons. In this instance, with the duck, it's crude oil, but hydrocarbons are hydrocarbons. I mean, that's pretty much it across the board. And so the testing is what began. So what does it look like if we, in a post suppression environment with just water, and then what does it look like in a post suppression environment with by the use of Class A calves? And I got to be honest with you, when we did it with Draeger tubes, there was a pattern, but we all know Draeger tubes have a plus or minus of 15 to 20%. That's a big drift, but that's what I had access to when I wrote the paper. But when I got done presenting, in Amsterdam, I'm like, man, there's got to be a better way to have science. And then that's when I reached out to Patrick, and we did 16 tests in December of 2018. The numbers were even more mind-blowing then. The issue with the test in 2018, our fuel loads were inconsistent because all we were burning was whatever piece of furniture I could get from the local Goodwill or off the curb of the street. And so the fuel loads were never consistent. And we were looking at different types of foam agents. So that kind of was all over the place. And we just wanted to get down into where we are today, 2020, where the fuel load is consistent and the foam is consistent, the same percentage. The only thing that was different was, did we put the fire out with water or did we put it out with Class A calves? And that's where we are today. And
so, Gary, in that testing that you've done here more recently since 2018, where you've now had this consistent set in place, what are you measuring first and foremost? What are you monitoring in these applications, and why? And
well, I know, when we put it together, I originally gave the list of products from Fabian's article to Patrick, and it included sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, the whole gauntlet. And Pat, as he gets a chance, and we talk about the air monitoring in a couple of weeks, he talks about, everybody's concerned about the toxic twins with CO and hydrogen cyanide, and we just push that aside. Those are acute exposure issues. You can handle that through just, SCBA use. We're talking about the stuff that over 20 and 30 years is going to give you cancer that no one in their right mind wants. And so we eventually settled on benzene. And the reason we settled with benzene was it's real simple. Everybody knows that it's a carcinogen. All you got to do is pull out the NIOSH pocket guide, and it'll tell you that. And the other thing is, it's a low-hanging fruit. It's pretty much in anything and everything that is a hydrocarbon. And so we had the instrument, or I shouldn't say we, Patrick had the instrument for this. It was the Moran Sapphire. It's FTIR technology, infrared technology, where it is a very robust system to handle these level of tests.
Yeah, so obviously we now know why benzene, right? We know it's a known carcinogen, and maybe you take us and actually let's get into some of this data. I think it's probably a great time to look at maybe some of the tests, and I think even have some videos to share of what actually took place in these fire type scenarios that you've done. And the other real quick question: how many have you done, Gary, this year, or since the 2018-16 tests?
Well, 2018 we did 16. I would say we've done probably 40 tests, closer to 50 tests this year over 3 different weekends. We did a series in August, a series in September, and then a series in October. And I'll get into that. I'm going to show some graphs here to get some visuals, and then we'll get into the videos later. So these are the graphs from the benzene readings that I did and the other readings I got when I used the Draeger tubes. in 2015. So, I mean, you can see a pattern, but it's not a consistent pattern. And again, this has to do with the shortcomings of using colorimetric tubes. This is the result.
Real quick, can you zoom that in just a little bit for us?
This one here?
Yeah, if you can just expand that.
Yeah, just making it a little bigger.
There we go.
Yeah.
Is that better?
That's better. Yep.
Perfect.
Thanks, Gary.
Yep. So these are off of colorimetric tubes. When we did the sampling, we had to look at how many strokes would it take, what was the half-life of the gas that we were looking, and there was a protocol put together on how these were going to be sampled. And the ones that we looked at, again, benzene, formaldehyde, and carbon monoxide. And the reason we went with Draeger tubes is because there's only so many instruments or types of instruments that can measure that. There's no 4-gas meter that measures benzene, or there's no PID that's going to measure benzene straight out. It's always got to be either or. And that was an issue going forward. So then let's go up to 2018. And this is these are just numbers for benzene. Again, these are benzene specific. These numbers are in parts per million. And this was water versus Class A calves. There are, as you can see, 9 fires. And over here to the left, you can see that at this time, position number 1 is when suppression started. And in both cases, whether it was water or calves, the agent was flowed for 20 seconds. And we always started at the ceiling and we worked our way in a back and forth Z pattern till we hit the bottom of the floor for 20 seconds of flow. And then it was time stamped. And then after that, the atmospheres were re-metered, and you can see the results.
Wow, it's pretty crazy when you look at it from that perspective. But you kind of, this was part of that original testing, right? Which you said, hey, it wasn't as accurate or as detailed as need be. So it's impressive when you look at it here. And so really, to those of you following and watching, just wait. It's going to get better. And Gary's done an incredible job, him and Patrick both in this research and this study.
And Gary, I got to ask too, real quick. Is the reason that this was uncharted waters, do you think it was instrumentation? We just didn't have it? Or was it just something that we hadn't put 2 and 2 together as a fire service? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it has to do with, we never put 2 and 2 together. Mm-hmm. The Navy had done some research on Class A calves years ago, and the research was based on using Class A calves to scrub carbon. I have never been able to find that research article through all of my search engine activities. I still hope to find it to see what they were thinking, but I just don't think it was ever put together. And the sad thing about it is that the practicality of this really is actually very simple. I mean, this isn't rocket science. Again, I mean, when your hands are really dirty, after you put water on them, what's the next thing you reach for? Detergent. Why? Because it works. And then, if we really got something nasty, sticky, what do? Well, we inject air into those bubbles so that it sticks, so it works longer. Welcome to calves. So that's that component. So here's some pictures of our fire research set. This is the burn cell. You can see the sampling ports there at about 6 foot. This is the fire load. It's the walls are lined with OSB. That's what was giving us our consistent fuel load. So we weren't using, this couch or that couch. We wanted to make sure that the fire gases were consistent. And then we used a pallet and a quarter bale of straw. And then these strips here are OSB that were used when we trimmed the sheets to send them into the burn cell. And then you can see the picture of our fire light. And then you can actually now see the test cell with the door closed. And as soon as we claim the fire is lit and come out, we lock or close the door behind us. And then the lower left picture, you can actually see Patrick outside operating the Moran Sapphire. And he's sampling through the sample ports from the inside. And you can go ahead and see those images there as well. So then getting down to the nuts and bolts, what it's really about. So we came back to the tests in early August. And we were simply looking at Class A calves versus water. And we wanted to eliminate all of the variables except what was the agent. So we used one calves unit. We used one brand of foam. We did all suppression at 0.5%. We used the same hose, whether it was water, calves, the same nozzle. The only difference was the nozzle for water, we put it at 15/16 tip. For calves, we took the tip off and went full bore because that's what the calves manufacturer recommended. The foam that we used was 0.5%, and it was ChemGuard Class A Extreme. We wanted to make sure that there were the only variables again was was just what the fires were being suppressed with.
Mm-hmm. And looking at our, I'd say many of the tools we've carried for a while, our 4-gas meters, all that stuff. There's some limitations there, and without not everybody has this. And I don't think I'm saying it right, but Moran Sapphire, like we don't have that, but what we do have is some of this data now, and what's that mean for my fire department? What's that mean for David's fire department? How do we take that home and package it up so it's something useful? Gary?
Well, anytime we make presentations on this, you got to apply the bell-shaped curve. To me, 5% of the fire department that already has calves, they're going to go ahead and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is some numbers that we can work with. We've got calves. We bought it for a reason. Now here's an even better reason. So then the next part is, well, what if from a fire department they don't have calves, but we believe in the use of Class A foam, and how can we make things safer? We don't really have the data right now to say, to compare nozzle aspirated Class A foam versus calves. We went with calves at the start because we know that when you're talking about 3-dimensional fire attack and all the benefits that you get from putting compressed air into the agent, that's what we looked at first. So what does it mean going forward? I think to go back to what Fabian stated in 2010, the instruments that we have on the fire ground that don't work, a CO meter and a hydrogen cyanide meter, and Fabian even stated you can have 0 readings for CO and 0 readings for hydrogen cyanide and still have all the other carcinogens in that fire environment. Another good thing is a sniff test. If the room smells like burnt off-gassing plastic, hello, rocket scientists, that's what it's doing. It's off-gassing carcinogen. Put your stuff on.
Yeah.
Leave your stuff on. When should I take it off? No, you don't. Not till you get outside. And when we get into our video about how we decon our guys at the end of this, you'll see how you can do that.
And Gary, I'm gonna steal your statement real quick. You can't change physics and you can't change chemistry. We said that I don't know how many times when we did our pre-planning for this, and it's so true now, and it's true later, and it's true next week. That's a statement that needs to be. We need to remember that. You can't change physics and you can't change chemistry.
You can't. And I mean, the UL and NIST studies have been out for at least 10 years, if not more, and you'll still have people that argue over the results. And I'm like, hey, I'll say it again. You can't change physics and you can't change chemistry. No matter what you think. That's why they're called scientific laws. We just need to be able to take that and apply that to the modern fire ground, because again, that fire ground is significantly different than when it was 20 and 30 years ago. And it's going to change even more. Plastics aren't going away. I don't care what you say.
So Gary, when I look at this here, I can see, hey, if I look at those numbers right there in front of me, I'm seeing about more than 80% reduction in that first timestamp.
Sure.
And I'm not sure what that first timestamp was from 1 to 2 there, but you see about an 80% reduction.
Number one right here is this is suppression.
Okay.
This is the suppression at 20 seconds. Okay. And then this is what it looked like literally 1 minute later.
There's 1 minute later. Okay.
1 minute later.
And so a massive reduction right there with utilizing the Class A application. So maybe from a scientific perspective, what actually is happening there? I know you touched on it briefly at the beginning, but maybe let's re-hit that one more time. What's the scientific matter happening here?
Well, again, we'll go back to physics and chemistry. So because benzene and all the other stuff can't burn free in a compartment fire, as it degrades from its solid component of furniture or carpeting or whatever, it becomes suspended in air. Benzene as a natural compound is a component of gasoline, and at ambient temperature, it wants to be a liquid. We superheat it. Well, what happens? Physics and chemistry takes over. When I superheat a molecular structure, it expands and it's going to rise up. And so now benzene has become suspended in this smoke package that's above our heads. And because of the convective currents and the radiated energy inside of that, it now just begins to burn and toil inside of that smoke package. And it's sitting above our heads. If our determination is that we're a water-only department, again, physics and chemistry are going to take place. As soon as I open up with water, the only thing that water does is removes heat. It cools the environment. But when I do that, all of that stuff that was suspended above my head because its molecular structure had expanded, I've now contracted. And the chemistry behind it and the physics behind it says that stuff is now coming down on top of me. And so,
so I'm now just coating myself in that room with all of, not just, we're measuring the benzene, but there's many other carcinogens in that smoke. So it's just dropping on me, right? That's what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, and you can kind of help yourself a little bit with that if you cool as you go. But again, you have to remember, if you're cooling the smoke, it's coming down. And what is
the moment we knock the fire down, we're taking a sponge bath and everything that was above our head.
Yeah, I mean, it's now on top of the water that you're crawling over.
Yep.
So that water is cooling it. All the agents now liquefying, coming down on us, and our gear and all aspects of things with water.
Yeah.
So give us the Calves application. Why is Calves different? Why is foam different?
Well, as we've stated, I mean, the detergent component of Class A foam has this affinity for carbon particles. And that's because, hydrocarbons, carbon is part of the makeup of that surface active agent, that surfactant. No different than, what we find in Dawn dish soap, Tide laundry detergent, the list goes on. So, when we put together the theory is that, these hydrocarbons are going to attract these other hydrocarbons, benzene, formaldehyde, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and the gauntlet of known or suspected carcinogens, that they would be able to, and we'll use a slang word, scrub the smoke and remove this, or at least, if nothing else, minimize the amount of carcinogens in the smoke above us. And so that was the theory. I think now, you're looking at this screen, you can see that there's some pretty good evidence behind that. But if this isn't enough, then we can go ahead and take a look at September. We had done so many tests with Class A calves. We thought, let's come back and let's just do a whole bunch of water tests only. And these are all water tests. And this was basically an entire weekend where we did nothing but suppress the fire with just water. And look at your benzene readings up to 4 minutes in the post-suppression environment.
Real quick, I'm going to put a comment up we got from Jerry. He said, fuel, he's heard of fuel package before, but never smoke package. Gary, thanks for, bringing this up. And Jerry, as well as Kyle, he said a baking flour fog with less oxygen. Okay. So thanks, guys, for chiming in. We appreciate the comments while we're talking through this. All right, Gary, back to you.
Absolutely. Keep the comments coming. If you have questions or comments that you want to throw out, don't hesitate to plug them into the comments section. We'll try to bring them up whenever we can.
So now, again, we're looking at water only. And when we get into the videos, you'll actually see on the one that Pat put together in the video presentation with water, when the fire is suppressed and you listen to the audio, the benzene readings are actually going to continue to climb post-suppression. They're not even going to go down. And so you can see here there's a short spike or decrease here at position number 4, which is the minute 30 post-suppression. But as soon as you see the 2-minute mark, we're back up there. And look at these benzene readings. These are all in excess of about 6,000 parts per million or greater. And again, you're talking about a known carcinogen, and this stuff is suspended in the environment at about the 6 foot. We did all of our measuring at the 6 foot level because that's where we figured that most firefighters would be walking, and if they had their masks off, you're right in it. So this is October of this year. So literally a little over 2 months ago, we came in and we did really no water. We really didn't do any water tests, and we went right with Calves. This time we switched Calves units. We went to another manufacturer. However, the foam and everything else stayed the same. These are number one. This is a suppression, 20 seconds of flow. So this is what it was reading when we began to apply the agent. And after 30 seconds, there's your benzene readings.
Wow, I mean, that's just incredible. It's hard to believe and to see all of that in that mix.
So again, if you go back and look at this one, and then you compare it to that one, and you compare it to that one, and then you compare it to these, you can see the pattern. And after 50 or 60 fires that we've done, we're pretty confident to say the fact that Class A Calves scrubs benzene from the smoke package.
It's pretty apparent here, and it's hard to believe that can make that big of a difference, right? But if you start thinking about the potential of utilizing Calves now in every attack, and what it can do for me, for you, for all of us as firefighters to limit our exposure to some of those carcinogens, this is awesome stuff. Where it wasn't a thought, before of a technique to use Calves in this application, but this is a game changer.
Well, and I think too is, when Calves was designed and implemented, it was always designed as an outside-inside application. So you start from the outside and you work your way in. And I know some departments that use water would say, well, we'd like to pencil, or I've heard cool as you go. I simply like to flip it around, and I'm now saying that Calves doesn't stand for compressed air foam systems. I'm saying that Calves, the acronym Calves, now stands for carcinogen absorbing foaming solution. And if you now scrub as you go, if you're using the same penciling concept or cool as you go, except now we're applying Class A Calves as we go, we're literally scrubbing that smoke package or smoke environment as we move forward. And as we move forward to the fire room, and NIST with their study in 2017, Madrigowski stated that there's no difference in cooling between water and Calves. Well, if it's a third of the amount of water and it's cooling equally, then by God, go forward.
I know a lot of our viewers are thinking, well, I don't use Calves. Does that mean this doesn't affect me or apply to us at our department? Gary, what would you say to that? That's not necessarily true. It still does apply, correct?
Oh, very much.
Yeah.
Again, Calves produces the optimal bubble structure. Right. We haven't really done 40 or 50 fires that we've put out with your standard Class A, what I would say nozzle aspirated foam. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But I would, again, I'm going to go to, in this instance, what I would call face validity or common sense application, and say, if I'm using a Class A foam concentrate, which is a detergent, and I'm shooting it into an environment, it has to chemically bind with the carcinogens in that smoke and clear the atmosphere, clean the atmosphere. To what level it does versus Calves, I can't give you those numbers, but that's certainly that's on our list for as soon as we get warm weather in Illinois, so we can start burning again.
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, I know we've covered a lot here already, and it's pretty apparent the benefits of Calves, the benefit of, hey, Jerry Hughes right there. Calves equals carcinogen absorbing. You're absolutely right. And thanks for the comment there, Jerry. The other piece of this puzzle we talked about, I know you got a video to show, which I think is pretty impressive. And when you hold that little jar up here a little bit later, I think it's even more impressive. So we're talking about it in the suppression application, but there's also merit to utilizing the foam after suppression, right? And maybe in that. So why don't you share a little bit about the decon side of things and what you guys are doing at your department and some of the research around that as well?
All right. Well, let me get to that video. So again, same application thought process. If we're going into a smoke-filled environment, and our turnout gear is going to get smoke. Again, applying chemistry and physics. I take my NFPA ensemble and I walk into a superheated environment. Hello, McFly. The molecular structure of my gear is going to open up, and permeation is going to take place. And the gear manufacturers will even say, well, it's breathability. Well, to me, breathability means permeation. And you don't have a battery-operated one-way valve on that suit that's going to let everything out, nothing in. I'm sorry, that doesn't work. So you're going to get your stuff in your gear. So if we're scrubbing the atmosphere as we're doing suppression and overhaul, now it's time for us to decon. And IFSI, the Illinois Fire Service Institute, along with UL and NIST, released that study in 2017 that stated, hey, if you use Dawn dish soap, you're 85% likely to get the majority of those carcinogens out of your gear. Well, again, what's Dawn dish soap? It's a detergent. What's Class A foam? It's a detergent. So we took a look at using the bubble structure again. And if you think about how you use Dow scrubbing bubbles, or how you use Easy Off oven cleaner, or how you drive your car into a car wash and you get these bubble structures, then why can't we do that for when we decon our crews? And so this is...
Gary, while you're pulling that up, somebody just threw in the comment there, carbon absorbing, and they said, what's the F and S stand for? So the F was
foaming solution.
Solution, right? Yeah, foaming solution. So
yeah, the reason we went with that right now, guys, is because we don't know to what level nozzle aspirated foam is going to have an impact. We did do a couple of fires in October where we did switch out and went to just nozzle aspirated foam. Actually, we just shut the air compressor off on our little unit and put a straight stream fog nozzle on it. And I got to be honest with you, the numbers were better than what I thought they were going to be. But like I said, I don't have 40 fires to show you what's the difference between nozzle aspirated and Calves. The other thing that I want to get out there before I forget, and it goes back to this outside in, you guys are all familiar with the acronym SLICERS or SLICER.
I'm not. Go ahead and break it down for me, just so in case other listeners aren't.
Well, it came out through the International Society of Fire Service Instructors, and I don't have it up right now, but SLICERS it is an outside-in approach to firefighting, taking the research from UL and NIST about transitional attack. But what I like to do is I like to say SLICER Calves, and the reason I'm saying Calves again is carcinogen absorbing foaming solution. If I start my attack from the outside and I'm applying this carcinogen absorbing agent into the smoke package to where I can put suppression, I am cleaning the environment as I go. So I'm now reducing the exposures to my firefighting crews. Bam, bring them out, and welcome to decon using Calves. And this works out real nice since we have black gear. It's a good visual. This one, we opted to not have the firefighter on air. This is what would look like if they were still using SCBA. I would highly recommend to have the SCBA on and breathing air as you're doing this decon procedure. We put this on dry because it sticks better, and we literally wait 2 or 3 minutes so that the bubbles have that cleaning effect that we want. And then we literally just take a shop vac and we start to shop vac the firefighters. And what's nice,
everybody watching, just wait. I was gonna say, everybody watching, just wait. You're gonna see where all that junk goes. It's pretty amazing. You got a brush
on that. You got a little brush on that shop vac too.
There's a scrub brush on it, and that's to give the mechanical component to it. And really, other than that, the mechanics from this is just taken out of your standard hazmat decon procedures. You know, we work off of a 90-degree turn. But the reason we went with shop vac is we completely eliminate runoff, and by using the bristle brush, we're getting additional cleaning components to it. So we wanted to go, well, what does it look like when it's all said and done after the fire is out? So this jar right here is what I poured the shop vac into. You can still see some of the bubbles, but that's exactly what it looked like. And that was literally 2 weekends of fire. One was a weekend at the State Fire Academy training, and then the other one was a Saturday where we were doing Calves test. That's what the bubbles breakdown looked like afterwards. And this was just one firefighter. And you can see how black that was.
Gary, I think a good point here is that, I mean, that's literally applying calves, shot backing off. That's not going through an extractor and anything else that you should be doing with your gear. That's just a shot back, sucking up that agent that you just put on.
Yeah. And we're still saying your gear's got to go back and get cleaned.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly a believer that when all's said and done, if you're applying carcinogen absorbing foaming solution, whether it's calves or NAFs, into your three-dimensional fire environment, you're reducing the carcinogen levels inside the fire compartment. You're in there. It's your overhaul agent.
Yep. Well, and real quick, I'm going to chime in. I've read some articles and posts about people saying we as the fire service are getting too selfish about the decon before we attack the fire. This doesn't change fire attack. That still happens. That all still happens immediately with the same progressive, aggressive, we prioritize that. This is afterwards. This is after we're out.
This is just another step. And I'm going to use a term that I got from my friend from Netherlands, Marco van Holst, who put together the ICAF symposium. In Netherlands, they use a term called clean work, and it has to having a cleaner working environment or a cleaner working atmosphere. And I think that's a really good analogy or title to what we're trying to do here. We're trying to clean your working environment up as best we can by literally scrubbing the atmosphere that we're working in. And then when we're done, whatever we didn't get, we're going to try to get that off of your gear before we put you back on the fire apparatus to go back to your station and then wash your gear and still take a shower. But we firmly believe that this is helping reduce, again, that the title of it is carcinogen reduction. We're not saying carcinogen elimination. We're saying carcinogen reduction.
Mm-hmm. Well, and a little bit goes a long way. In what, 2 minutes? All of 2 minutes after the fire attack was complete, the fire's out. 2 minutes it reduced all that exposure, not just to the immediate firefighter, but the truck, the crew, the station. Who knows where else he goes home? All those things. We kept it. We put it in a jar, right, with the shot back. But that's one instance. Imagine that times 1,000. How does that affect our fire service, right?
Well, the other thing too is it's real simple. You can carry a 5-gallon shot vac, and if you don't have calves, we just use a portable calves unit that we had donated to us. It's a 3-gallon. It's the size of an oversized water can. You can simply put that in the cabinet of your truck, and when you're all said and done and you're ready to decon, you whip out your little calves unit, decon yourself, shot vac, and then go ahead and use good solid gear removal techniques using EMS gloves. Again, that hazmat approach. So let's show those videos of those tests, guys, if you think there's time, because I really think this gives a good visual to what we've talked about. You guys good with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
For our followers here, we normally try to keep it to 30 minutes, in our show, but this is great stuff, and we want to make sure we take the time and address it appropriately. That's why it's a 3-part series. We figured we're going to go along today. I hope you guys stay with us. But Gary, go right ahead. Why don't you show those videos? I think it's great stuff.
So these were put together by Patrick, and this is where I'll let him step in because this is his baby. So the first one is Moran Sapphire, and this is water-only suppression.
Patrick, feel free to unmute if you need. There you go.
I'm not a computer wizard, but yeah, I did this off like a $5 app. So bear with me. I mean, I'm not a computer tech guy.
It's all good.
But basically just getting everything that Gary said from his EFO paper and putting it in a visual format that firefighters understand, It's seeing it in person is what I think the majority of firefighters, how they learn, So this definitely brings that perspective where you're like, oh, I get it now,
Yeah, absolutely.
We do have this on YouTube, but it is a private link right now.
So water only here, correct?
Yeah, and you will notice, I believe there's 1 or 2 water tests prior. From what I've seen firsthand out of these, 50 plus tests, was that even after suppression and ventilation, the benzene levels were still, hanging upwards of 600 parts per million, even though the air was completely clear. CO readings were nothing, HCN, but
So what are we reading right now? This, if I'm reading this right, 99,000, 9,400
yeah, that's
parts
specifically
per million there, right?
for benzene. Yeah, that Moran Sapphire, it's a very robust.
So
Very
you're,
robust.
so you're looking, you can actually hear in the background the timestamp. So this is climbing to 9,700 parts per million, and we're not even to a minute post suppression. So the water's already been applied, and you're still seeing your benzene readings climb, and that's because the fuel is still off gassing.
Yeah, so almost 10,000 parts per million right there. 9960, 9970. Oh, there we go.
1 minute post suppression, 1 minute.
And we noticed at the test that no matter, some only climbed to like 3,000. We didn't know if that was, whether it was a little sweat in there or whatnot, if it wasn't reset correctly. But the bottom line we saw was that using water or versus calves, that the end result, that's the drop.
1 minute, 30 seconds.
Want to get that whole process filmed, but you'll see with the next test of the benzene, it's the drop is always the same throughout the test, which is it's remarkable.
Hey, Gary, this is a question. So Jerry
Yep.
Hughes just sent out a question that says, hey, benzene has 6 carbon atoms, correct? Is that right on that one?
Correct. Six and six. So the chemical formula for benzene is C6H6.
C6H6. Thank you for that, Jerry. Hopefully that helps you there. So we're continuing to see this continue to climb with the water there only on this one.
And here, this is the point too that you asked. Well, what if I bring in my CO and hydrogen and my hydrogen cyanide meter? They're not going to read benzene, and you're at 2 minutes and 30 seconds post suppression. This would be the safety officer said, "Okay, guys, you can go ahead and take your masks off because you're not reading the benzene. Look at your benzene readings; those are almost 11,000 parts per million."
And that, to be clear, that was obviously our test fire burning, and that was just OSB and straw primarily,
Yep.
correct? So that's
Yeah.
not even that's not the couch that it's in our living room or our modern bed mattress. That's not even including that dense of a fire load, correct?
That's
Carpeting, carpet padding, any of that fun
Right.
stuff, right? So, I
So
mean,
now I'm going to
that's
show you the video of the Calves application that Pat did. Let me get back here.
So a question just came up too, Gary, while you're pulling it up. Have you tested other carcinogens in the smoke?
We did in 2018, but it became so complicated that it was pretty tough to continue to do. So that's why we just stopped doing. That's why we just went to benzene, just because it was easier.
Yeah, you have the meters that can actually pick up the benzene on a regular and consistent
And like
basis.
I said, we went with benzene. We just went with benzene because it was a low-hanging fruit. And the other thing is a lot of instruments are set up to read benzene because of its system. So let's go ahead and try this. Can you guys see this one?
Not yet.
Okay, let me go back.
And in previous tests, I remember in 18, I was like an octopus. I had about 8 different single gas on me, SO2, NO2. Then I'm holding 2 6 gas, I'm holding the Sapphire, and yeah, like Gary said, we really looked at what's the low hanging fruit in every fire, and yes, we could certainly test for the others, but it's all the same.
Okay. Gary, we got your video up here playing. So this is
let
the
Pat
benzene
talk because
test
he's the one actually holding this meter. So
with calves.
30.5, 27,
So I don't know if you heard or not. The peak reading on this for this fire, benzene was at a little over 9,000, and within seconds you can see where your benzene readings are. And this is literally being measured inside the fire compartment.
Wow.
And that one is in 2018. Had that couch in there, Chief.
Yep. This is one of the ones we did with a couch a couple of years ago.
And also based off that approach, the newer test, we decided to go from the outside to eliminate any variables of what we're picking up, and just safer for the instrument itself. It's a 60 grand instrument, brand new on the market, but
You
so we
said
didn't want to.
60 grand.
Yeah, so we ran it a few times, and we're like, we don't know if we want to bring this rental unit in an environment like this. So yeah, we opted with the outside, and we ran two side by side, had a rental unit, and then we have our own, and yeah, it
Wow.
it protected them, and yeah, no damage. I mean, it was.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how fast those numbers are dropping.
Wow.
Fast forward from the last video, that's for sure. Wow. Well, there's your proof right there in the pudding, guys. I mean, yeah, our 4-gas monitors are great, but they're not measuring this, and this is killing her. This is killing us.
Yeah.
Killing us.
Hey, Gary, one of the questions that did just come in was what the NIOSH IDLH levels for benzene. They were thinking it's maybe 50 parts per million. I'm not sure on that. I thought 500 in my head, but
500 for benzene.
Yeah.
It's 500. Okay, that's what I was thinking it was too.
They switched. It was revised in the 60s. It used to be it was 10,000 for 1 hour, and then they revised it to 500 now.
Okay.
Thank you, Jerry. Hopefully that helps answer that question there. Thanks. Keep the questions coming, guys. We love that you're interacting there, and I think it's great stuff. So,
there was one other from Jerry I'm going to put up, and he said he tried to shot back some bunker gear, and evidently wasn't able to pull anything out. He said. Any thoughts on that, real quick, while we wrap up, guys?
I guess you'd have to define what pulled anything out was. Like I said, I mean, I've got 2 jars here, and both jars look the same from when we used a shot back on our gear. Now, one thing that we would love to do, if we could ever pull it off, is to send those 2 jars to a laboratory and have it run against a gas chromatograph to literally just see what is in there. But I got a pretty good idea that what you're seeing right now, and Pat really did a good job on this, and he renamed this, and I'll let Pat tell you what he came up with this. What he calls them.
Yes, I was sitting one night and coming back home from a drive, and me and Gary were talking about the coin that was phrased the toxic twins, and the fire service concerning CO and HCN, and understandably so. Those are acute effects you can drop, pretty quick, going to the building in those environments, but those are acute, effects. And they're not, carbon monoxide, HCN, they're not carcinogens. This is what really opened me up to the stuff that, in the air monitor industry doesn't have monitors capable of monitoring this continuously, because it's going to degrade the sensor and whatnot. And so yeah, I started looking at his list, and there's over 12 known carcinogens and present in every fire. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm like, just coined the term the deadly dozen. that long-term exposure that is, killing guys 10, 15, 20 years down the road when they retire. And it was eye-opening to me because I remember, when I was younger in the service, seeing the guys who were dirty and thinking, that guy has a lot of experience and this and that, and you're in that culture, and then you actually see this firsthand of the chemistry. Like Gary said, it does not lie, and you see the post-fire environment just still with those levels, and you're looking back, and you're like, amount of times I've taken off SCBA or this or that, or try to be cool, and it's just, it's shocking, it's scary, and it's definitely opened my eyes up, and
Yep,
it should for others.
absolutely. That's great.
I tell you what, Pat, I think you hit the nail on the head with one thing there, right? It used to be the badge of courage. If I came out and I had the soot on, if I was the one in there without my SCBA on, I tell you what you're seeing here today, if it's not an eye opener for everybody who's watching, it should be. And not only is it that off gassing when you do the initial suppression, how long that benzene will remain there, and the impact that Calves did, and I can't wait to see your extended data as you do more testing, Gary and Patrick, when it comes to regular foam applications without Calves, just to see that same comparison level and how it works as a whole.
Well, and real quick too, on my department here locally, I'm training some new recruits going through their probationary period, and just this week, I got to educate them on gear. And of course, gear is a giant topic, but one of the big things that hit home on was this culture change. And when I got in the fire service, it was what you said, badge of honor, cool, tough, all the above. I said that's not the case anymore. Let your actions do the talking and outperform everybody here. That's the badge of honor. Be good at your job, right? And they're like, okay. And so they don't have to unlearn or untrain past norms or what they think is the right thing to do. So it's just neat to see a small change in our culture at our department locally, and I'm sure other places. But this is a big thing, and it'll take a long time. But great information, and I like how we here we are an hour in. Yeah, so we're just scratching the surface.
Hey, Gary, we are an hour in, and we like to keep to that 30 minutes. I apologize to our followers for going so long, but I think it's been great information today. This is the first part in that 3-part series. Gary, maybe give a little precursor to next week. What are we going to talk about as we jump into next week's show?
Well, I think what we're seeing trend-wise is that fire departments in the U.S. are actually going away from foam systems. And part of it is budgetary, but their thinking is, well, I don't want to use foam, or hey, we're not going to be able to use foam because foam is bad. And so we're going to spend a lot of time next week talking about the differences between Class A and Class B foam. And again, it's because of an uneducated American Fire Service. I belong to the A foam authority, and I'm trying to tell these guys, stop using the term A foam because it gets convoluted with foam in general. And that's why I firmly believe that we should use this carcinogen absorbing foaming solution because again, if we're absorbing carcinogens, good for people, good for firefighters, but also good for the environment, because if we're scrubbing smoke, we're scrubbing smoke. And then we're going to talk about the pluses and minuses of fluorinated surfactants and give the history behind why we have, Class B foams and how it works. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't know until I started asking questions. And then, of course, begin to probe into what do these new green Class B foams look like, and then how do they work with their, again, application to physics and chemistry.
So, Gary, Patrick, thank you very much for joining us here today. I know John and I both have been excited for this 3-part series, and I want to say thank you. I think it's been great information, great data. And, for those of you guys who want more information on this, Gary is open to talking. We put his email here at the bottom, and feel free to reach out directly to Gary.
I see some familiar names on here. So Mark Cummins asked, did we fan pattern the Calves versus a straight stream? We did in October and see no significant difference. And then Jerry Hughes, I know Jerry as well. He says we have Class A foam tanks on our engines, but provide no training on it. Jerry, Reddick, Illinois, 60961. It's not a big town. Come on down and we'll burn and show you how it works.
That's
And
great.
So, thank you very much to you all watching and following along here today as we went a full hour in our show. We hope you take some time and join us again next week as we go into that second part of this 3-part series. And John, I'll let you kind of put us into wrap. Oh, go ahead, Gary.
Next week is foam chemistry geeky stuff, so come on board.
Absolutely. And John knows me, and that Gary and we could spend hours on this topic, so it's going to be a fun one for sure. Yep. And thank you again, John. Why don't you take us for a wrap, and let's close it out for the day here.
Pat and Gary, we'll see you next time. I'll get you guys out of here, and we'll bring you back next Friday.
All right. God bless you all. Keep well.
Thanks, Gary. All right, Dave. Yeah, so here we are an hour in. I just wanted to tell everybody thanks for joining in and the interactions on the comments here through Facebook that we're seeing. Next week, again, as Gary mentioned, we're going to be talking a little more in the weeds. So I hope that you guys choose to join us, and you have his email there. Let us know. Otherwise, everyone stay well and safe during this time as we get into the holidays with Christmas around the corner and New Year. So stay safe, stay well, and we will see you next time in the Jump Seat.